What's going on, guys? I'm Scott.
And I'm Quinton.
Welcome to Rated D Radio. What's happening, guys? Welcome to Rated D Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I am here with the one and only Pastor Quinton Light. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, brother. How you doing today,
I'm doing good. It is a long day, and I got my coffee. I'm ready to go.
Yes, sir. We got all our coffee ready to go, huh?
That's still hot. All right. So, thank you so much for coming out today. Now, this is Pastor Quinton Light. Like I said, he's the director of Eagle Creek Recovery Center here in Shreveport, Bossier City, Louisiana, in this area. Go ahead and just tell us a little bit about Eagle Creek and yourself, if you would.
I sure will. My name's Pastor Quinton Light. I'm the director of Eagle Creek. Eagle Creek Recovery Center is for alcoholics, drug addicts, anybody dealing with any type of addiction that's just life-altering. We get a lot of people that come out of prison. And what we do, we give them opportunity to learn about Jesus Christ, and we give them an opportunity to learn about how they can overcome their addiction, how they can beat it, and how they can just deal with life without having to have life-altering substances.
It's we've had a lot of different things on the show so far, and as far as dealing with, I have some friends who dealt with a lot of addiction problems when I was kind of growing up and stuff like that, and I have some friends now. And so if you guys are familiar with the show, you know my co-host that's usually here, Dustin, and he went through a lot of addiction and problems and stuff like that in his high school years, and he's only 22. Wow. So he dealt with that, but now he is an ordained minister, and his life has been hugely changed. It's amazing. So I want to ask you a few questions about Eagle Creek.
Yes.
So how long has Eagle Creek been going? I know you might have mentioned it, but how long has actually Eagle Creek been started, and when did it start, and kind of how that got going?
Started back in 1995. Pastor Mike Back started it. It's been been around for 23 years, and we've been up and running for obviously 23 years.
Wow. And what would you say, I'm using this for a lack of a better term, what would you say I guess you said success or recovery rate?
Success rate and recovery rate, that's a good question, because around the nation, you'll get a bunch of that, and it varies from different places. But if you step in line with a faith-based rehab center, you're going to have a success rate between 60 and 80%. If they run and they learn exactly what they learned through Jesus Christ, and they get out and they stick to the program.
That's awesome. So, the big thing here, especially on the show, guys, I know a lot of people who have tuned into the show before. Some of you guys are faith-based. Some of you guys are just watching because you're fans of the show, or you know us. Some of y'all have never seen us before and just go, hey, this is a YouTube link. It looks interesting, And so today we are talking about addiction and suicide prevention. We're going to get to all that today. But the reason I'm saying that is because a lot of our viewers don't have a faith base, you want to put it that way. So from their point of view, and playing the advocate here, right? Why do you think having this faith base in this Eagle Creek system shows a higher success rate than maybe a non-faith based?
Well, because in a faith-based, you learn to find someone that can help you. And we find somebody in that Jesus Christ. Now, there's nothing wrong with the 12-step. I've dealt with 12-step programs my whole life, and they find hope in there too. There's help in a community of numbers. You can be set free. But for me and my lifestyle, I didn't believe in God. And then I found God and I was set free. There's a difference between being set free and finding freedom. So when you find freedom through a faith-based with Jesus Christ, that's one way. You can be free. You can be set free from drugs, but there's a hopeful attitude with Jesus Christ that comes along with the faith-based.
That's awesome. That's an awesome answer. That's it. That's the show right there. No, but that's fantastic. So here's what I want to do. I want to dive into some just get kind of really real with our audience. And the big thing I love to do on the show is I like to just get raw with our audience, because we don't like to sugarcoat it, because if you sugarcoat it, no one's going to hear anything, and that's far past what our world does anyway right now. Right. So let's get real. I'll kind of talk a little bit, and some of y'all who know me know my personal testimony. I'm not going to elaborate too much, but I dealt with attempted suicide multiple times. I didn't deal with addiction as far as drug addiction, but I dealt with porn addiction. Yes. I dealt with anger problems and anger frustration, street fighting. I guess you'd say a fighting addiction, if you want to call it that. I just had a lot of different issues that all led to depression, suicide attempts. I lost a good friend to suicide. Unfortunately, when I was 18 and 19 years old. And so I've been in this this, and of course, a lot of y'all know that I've also have a bullying campaign that we're starting, and another bullying video that y'all will see soon. But with all that, it kind of ties together. But I want to kind of jump back to some roots.
Yes.
Where do you think addiction stems from? I mean, I know we all know some of the science behind it, medical, but let's talk a little philosophical and personal. Where do you think addiction for most people usually can stem from? Do you think it's just a chance thing, or?
No, it all stems from when you're trying to cover up something. Your pain, your struggles, your hurt, and you want to cover that up. You're trying to release your thoughts from being, like you said, a bully. You're trying to release yourself from that. If it's a bad marriage, or if it's something in high school that something dramatic has happened to you, you cover it up. There's a release when you get on drugs that starts out that way. Oh my gosh, I'll take my first pill, or if I hit my first line of cocaine, the world seems to evaporate, and you're walking on water, you feel like. And it takes away from curiosity, peer pressure, trying to fit in. If you see a group of people that you want to fit in with, a lot of people will follow that, and to stay fit in with the group, they'll end up start doing the drugs with them. And before you know it, it only takes that one time, and that addiction takes over.
And it's hard to hear because it's killing a lot of people. And like a lot of people's an understatement to what it's doing, and it's hitting people on the depression side, on the suicide. It's hitting people on just destroying families and relationships, and everything and above. And it's horrible. And so I wanted to bring you in for multiple reasons, and one to definitely shed some light on Eagle Creek. And you have any cool stories about Eagle Creek you like to share? Anyone that you're allowed to share? I guess I should say
that I'm allowed to share.
Yeah.
Yes. I without saying their names, I'll tell some stories.
Yes.
We've got an individual that actually you've probably seen his whole testimony all over. Daystar. He's a pastor all over the world. He's been all over. His name is John Skipworth. His story was very dramatic when it comes to attempted murder. Cutting somebody's throat, and then now when he found God in prison, he was sentenced for many years in prison, and they released him, and he is now a pastor, and he is about to take over one of the biggest churches in the North America.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was because they found something that helped them get through the addiction.
I know we're kind of jumping around, but I want to talk about types of addiction and like different variables. So meaning, let's talk about the big one right now, marijuana.
Yes.
Okay. You got these people on Facebook, we call them the trolls, whatever the term is now, but people are like, marijuana, it's not an addictive element, so it's not addictive. And of course, in my personal opinion, anything can be addictive, but there are certain, types of drugs or things that are more addictive because either the chemicals or how it reacts to your brain.
Yes.
So what is your opinion, not just on marijuana, but in drugs in general, including marijuana, as well as what can really affect addiction in different ways? What really can cause it more and more and more and more to want that, besides, all the medical stuff philosophically,
The medical stuff, for example, the gateway drug is marijuana. And that's the way I started drinking when I was 5. I remember being drunk at 5 years old. And then years down the road, I would try something new. Marijuana was the one. It would alter my thoughts. And before you know it, that altering put me in a level where I just wanted to do something different. So out of curiosity, I tried cocaine. And I moved my way into certain drugs. And before you know it, I'm doing all of them. Yeah, and every drug has their way of altering yourself, your ways, your thoughts. And when that happens, you don't make the wisest decisions. Any
addiction can happen from any point, can happen at anything. And it can happen at any time, right?
Anytime.
So, people say, well, you're more prone to, getting addicted at an early age because you're trying things, you're experimenting, it's okay, you're at a party, you're hanging out with the teenagers, hey, man, just try this one time. Is this attitude of, again, like I said, I've never been addicted to any kind of drugs or things like that personally, but is it a one-time deal sometimes? Is that a real true statement?
There is a one-time deal. Okay. I have been around people that it was a one-time deal. For me, it was not a one-time deal. Yeah, but majority of the people, it's not a one-time deal. But there are people out there that just didn't hit them like it hits most of us.
Yeah. So kind of shifting things over, first off, guys, if you guys are going through any type of addiction, right, especially in the Shreveport, Bossier City area, come see Eagle Creek Recovery, guys.
Yes.
And come, we'll have all the details below in the description. We'll have Pastor Light's information as well, whatever he'd like to release at the end of this video. We'll make sure that if you guys are struggling through anything, please tell somebody. Yes. If it's not us or not Eagle Creek, please see somebody. Tell somebody. And for those, and that's a good question real quick. If they're struggling and they're embarrassed, right? Is that a bug? I know that's a big
normal.
part of it, right?
It's normal. That's a normal feeling.
Who should they tell? They don't want to tell family, right? Or if they don't, in some cases, they don't have a family to tell. In some cases, who should they go to?
The last people that family members will talk to about an addiction is family themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Pastors. Pastors are usually the first ones that people come talk to. Actually, I've had people come to me that says, "Hey, my neighbor came and talked to me. What do I do about it?" I was like, "Well, do you know the individual?" And they say, "No, I don't know the individual. They just came and talked to me about it. It's a stranger." Somebody, I've seen people just walk up to a complete stranger. I'm that stranger where somebody walked up to and said, "Hey, I don't know who you are, but I have a drug problem and I want all the help I can get." And I was like, "Well, guess what? I happen to run a rehab," and we do. And it's just people will find out from better information from a stranger than they would own family member. Yeah.
Man, and that's something that I think in this world and in a lot of different areas, we're not going to get too off topic, but that love, man, we're missing love in so many places, and whether you're a believer or not, the love should still be there. The love that we obviously believe in comes from Jesus Christ and how He showed His love to the world and to His people. But for those of you that aren't in faith based right now, look, you still got to show love to people, and I think that's the thing is there's so much hate. And, people turn to drugs and they turn to other things because they don't feel accepted in some areas. I know a lot of teenagers, that's what they do. They want to fit in. They want this peer pressure and they're not sure what to do. So, that kind of leads to kind of moving on to another topic. Again, once you guys, if you guys are going through addiction and stuff, please seek help, and we'll make sure we have all the links in the description below.
Yes.
I had a friend of mine, like I said, I lost to suicide. When I was going through suicidal thoughts and I was going through this depression, my mom was in the hospital. My ex that I thought I was in love with as a teenager, right, cheated on me after 2 years of dating. Yeah, one of those. She cheated on me, and my mom was in the hospital. My parents were getting divorced at the time. It was just a really rough time. And I was trying to help pay the bills in our apartment in California. That's when I lived in California. I was trying to pay the bills, help her out. And it was just a lot for me. And, of course, I was being selfish at the time. And I was like, I was trying to be an actor. And I was we were a starving actor. I was trying to make everything go at 17, 18 years old. And when I was 18, I was alone one night in my bedroom with a knife to my throat. And I was just like... at the time I was an atheist. I had stopped really believing. I would still go to Sunday morning church and teach kids church, but I didn't believe. It was I can't believe I did that. Like, I just feel really dirty and bad about that. But, God forgives. But, I got there and I was just like, God, if you're real, show me. Do something.
Wow.
And I was just throwing, punches at the wall and throwing things. And my mom wasn't at the apartment at the time. And I remember feeling this warm feeling come over me, and I started crying like a little baby. I mean, it was waterworks for hours. But I remember feeling after I started crying, I felt a warmth kind of come from down inside. Yes. And I wasn't on anything that night. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't on there smoking anything. I had smoked weed at the time. I wasn't smoking that day and the past couple of days. So I had no kind of extra, influence, you want to call it that, on my body. Just the stress that I was going through. And I remember hearing this voice audibly out loud, and it said, "Scott, why you been running? I've been here for you the whole time." And I said, "All right, God, if this is you, prove it." And I get a call the next morning to go on tour for a whole year using my testimony across the United States.
Wow.
And it was amazing. But what I'm saying is, and going around, I'm leading into something here. When I went on tour and I had to perform this suicide scene over and over and over again in front of kids, my personal testimony. It broke my heart, but it also healed my heart at the same time to see so many kids dealing with the same problem or worse than I did. And I get emotional every time, sorry. But it's in two things. It inspires me. It breaks my heart that they're here anyway. Like, yes. the fact that these kids are already here. And that was a couple years ago. and it's just gotten worse, especially with the media and cyberbullying and things that I'll talk about in the other topics and the Who We Are movement that we're going to talk about in the other videos. It's getting horrible. And it's not just kids, though. It's kids and adults and teenagers, because this lack of feeling they belong and this depression, there's no one really really helping except, hey, pay some money and go take this pill.
Yes. Yes. You said it perfectly when you said you had a broken heart, but it was healed heart. Mm-hmm. You know that little phrase that says, time heals a broken heart? Mm-hmm. It's not really the truth.
Yeah.
Time heals a broken heart. Only thing time does, you get to learn to live with it. Mm-hmm. You learn to get healed by it. That's what time does.
Yeah.
And your story of kids, man, I'm telling you, somebody's opinion, just because they can be louder over an argument, what makes their opinion more factual than somebody else's opinion? And when people feel belittled like that, that's where we got to come together as one. I mean, my opinion is my opinion, but I'm not going to fight nobody over somebody else's opinion. We can meet in the middle and find an answer.
Right.
And that's what happens to these kids today, and like you said, adults. We've gone too far with the media where it's one-sided, one way or the other. Come on. Love brings everything together, right? Let's bring it back together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, I kind of shared a little bit, and if you'd like to, just so the viewers kind of have a little mindset, if you'd like to, I know we talked about it before we got in the video, to talk about a little bit of your testimony, if you'd like to share.
Yeah.
And then anything else you'd like to share that we had talked about previously, you know, the mic's yours, and you may go ahead, of course.
Okay, man. 19 years I did drug addiction, and that all started towards my latter times of high school, and when I graduated high school, I got heavy into the heavy drugs, and I joined the military to run from the drugs. Therefore, at 22 years old, I joined the U.S. Army, and I got stationed in Honolulu, Hawaii. So when I got to Hawaii, I did good for several months. I was running from the drugs. I was in a place where I could be who I wanted to be, and I was in the military having a good time. Well, I got promoted to sergeant. I made my way through the ranks, and I got a job working for a 2-star general. So when I got up there, I didn't have to do drug testing. I didn't have to answer to nobody else but a 2-star general. I could do whatever I wanted to do. So I started on meth again, and over in Hawaii, meth was very big at that time frame in the early 2000s. Still is. And while I was there, I got so caught up in the drug scene, I was driving down a road one day, and one of the other sergeants that was with me said, "Sergeant Light, you work for a 2-star general. You can do whatever you want. You're God in your own life." I remember saying, "Yes, you are correct. I am God of my own life." 2 weeks later, I'm in Pearl Harbor, locked up because of assault and battery charge, drug addiction, and it was just absolutely the worst time I've ever felt. So I'm sat in jail for almost 2 years because of an assault and battery charge because of addiction. And I got out of prison, and I went back home to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I got married, and I was doing drugs while I was married. She didn't know it, and for the first 5 years of our marriage was disaster for her. It was disaster for me, and I remember I got kicked out, and I had to go live with a friend. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything. And I remember one day when the divorce paperwork was on the judge's desk, ready to be signed, and I remember raising my hands to the sky, and like you said, God, if you exist and if you're real, I'll do whatever it takes to get off drugs and have a better life than what I have now. And then right then, in the middle of this island, in the kitchen, there was a phone book. I started calling every rehab I could, and nobody accepted me. 30-something rehabs didn't even accept me because I didn't have any money, no cash.
Oh.
I know the feeling of having no money, and you know, we've taken people off the streets for years with no money, and they're still set free from addiction and have a family and a house now because they come to Eagle Creek and we teach them.
Wow.
And when I did that, somebody called back a few hours later and said, "We don't know why we're doing this, but we are going to pay the cash for you, and you can come to our rehab, but you have to be here tomorrow."
Wow.
I was like, oh, okay. So I called my wife, who was going through a divorce with, and I told her the story. She goes, "Yeah, I'll take you down there. That's it. I'll take you down there, and divorce is finalized." Well, I get down there, and she came and visited me while I was in there.
Wow.
And she did that every weekend. And the last weekend I was there, she said, God told me to give you one more shot. I was like, oh, God, here we go again. I don't know God, but I'll go. Well, I got out, And I went to church. I started doing men's Bible studies.
Wow.
And next thing you know, I'm running a rehab years down the road. And I never thought that would. I never thought it would be me running a rehab to help men get off drugs, or women, or anybody dealing with anybody off the streets. But because God changed my life, and I made a choice to change, and that's what happened. So that was my story.
That's what's amazing about Eagle Creek Recovery and a lot of things, and other ministries that are popping up too, but especially here in Shreveport Bossier, is that and that's the big thing, is that they don't have money to go to rehab or go to recovery. They don't have the money to get themselves off, or all they know is the drug dealing, and of course they wind up using while they're drug dealing. A lot of them do, and so they're like, this is the only life that I know. But I tell you, I know a lot of you guys out there who are, I don't skeptics, you want to call it that way. I don't like using that word. But look, this God thing is pretty cool. Let me rephrase that. This Jesus thing is pretty cool. This Jesus thing, because a real follower of Christ loves. And I think with the media and with suicide going on, it's such a rise. And I think I was reading a statistic that showed, put it on my last video, it was like 5,964 students a month are committing suicide in America alone.
America alone.
And that's not, and of course, this is an international program, but still, like, just for America's statistics to see this, and a lot of it is stemming from addiction, from lack of love and within their own family, or family problems or domestic problems. They're lacking from bullying. I mean, they have the lack of love because they get attacked by bullies and different types of bullying, including cyber, wanting to fit in, this peer pressure. And my heart is kids and teens.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at. And yours right now is the same, but it's also older young men.
Yes.
17, 18-year-old young men out there. So just a little bit older mindset, but yours is also teens too. But, with this being said, there needs to be something that happens, right?
Yes.
And the love of Jesus, as much as people don't want to accept that, really the real love of Jesus, what the media will not show, is what's making the difference in some of these kids' lives. But it needs to be more prominent, in my opinion.
Right. Well, let me throw you for a loop. We had atheists come up through our program, and they battled us the whole way through. But you know what? They're sober today, and it's been years for some of them. Wow. And they found something, and they fought us till the last day. But guess what? Their life changed, and they haven't looked back since.
Suicide is something that affects all ages and is growing. In not just America, but right now we're talking about American statistics, and it is growing and growing in young men and young women. It is growing in teenagers, and even the last report, it showed a 9-year-old kid, 9 years old, taking his life because he couldn't fit in elementary school or junior high. There's a news story that came out about 2 months ago, and it was in Ohio, I think, and it was this young boy, 9 years old, and the mom was just devastated. Another young boy committed suicide about a month ago here in Bossier City area, not at Parkway, but I think Airline. And he was still, 12, I think.
My gosh.
And it is ridiculous. And you know what the problem is? It is a lot of stems for the problem. But instead of blaming people like everybody else does, we need to say, okay, well, instead of blaming, let's see what we can do to help.
Yes.
Because I think that's the problem in a lot of these situations in these schools and the politics, and even in some of the churches, are doing blaming and here's the problem, you're the problem, this the problem. Do something.
Yes.
And not a protest, physical fighting or like violence manner, but like, make some love. Go in there and actually try to start up a program. Reach out to these kids. Because a lot of these kids, the biggest thing, I know what I did, I didn't want to talk to anybody. When I was going through it, I pushed away everybody in my family.
Yes.
I pushed away my best friend. And finally, if it wasn't for God, I'd be dead. But also my best friend, he kept being pushy, right? He was like, you need to talk to me, bro. You talk to me. And finally, I let him through. And it was a very intense moment. But, some people hold that all in, right? And so this whole stigma that young boys and young men are basically being like, you need to, do this or suck it up, and if you don't, then you're called a baby, or you're called this, or you'll be bullied for it. And I'm like, guys, come on. And of course I grew up with that stigma too, but what's your thought on that?
Well, let me tell you something. The Bible says Pride comes before a fall. Okay? And that's what we are. Us men, we have a prideful attitude, and that's what we're taught. Don't do that. Don't look like you're hurt. Don't cry. Don't say this. Do it this way. My God, how many times have you been riding around and you're lost, and your fiance says, "Why don't you just pull over and ask for directions?" And how many times do you pull over and ask for directions? None. Okay, me neither. So why? Because our pride. And that's our pride. We don't like our pride being hurt. And if that was taught decades and hundreds of years ago for somebody to say, hey, don't let your feelings show on your shoulder. Don't do that. Why? Because you're going to look weak. Well, Jesus was meek. Don't take your meekness for a weakness.
I like that. Don't take your meekness for a weakness.
Right?
T-shirt right there.
So when we look at somebody, when I see somebody so humbled and they're just staring at the ground, I can walk up to them and sit down next to them and say, hey, man, what's going on? And then after I get to know them, they are the strongest, spiritual, prideless men I've ever met because they know their confidence.
Or this whole roundabout, like, well, are you guys still talking about suicide prevention? Yeah, we are, because we're talking about the roots. And a lot of things, you guys hear me say that a lot in these videos, the root, because we see the top shelf.
Yep.
We don't see what's holding it or lack of holding
Yeah.
onto ourselves and our mind and things we go through, right?
Right.
You know, like we talked earlier in the video about the addiction and where it comes from. You know, it's not always a party, right?
Right.
And maybe you're at a party, but the reason you try it is for a lot deeper meaning, right? It's not always just peer pressure. Maybe it actually is something deeper than that.
Yeah.
When these kids go to school, that's supposed to be a safe place. Supposed to be a place for them to learn and grow and, you know, experience social interaction with other kids and other teachers and adults. And in a lot of places, now, I understand about toughening up in one way, but there are a lot of kids who can't do that. Not yet. They haven't learned that. You know, we put this stigma, I believe, in a generalization, and correct me if I'm wrong, on kids, that they're all going to like, oh, they'll learn.
Yes,
they'll toughen up
we
through
do
it.
that. We do.
And it's like, some will, and apparently, as you can see, some won't.
The typewriter. Who remembers the typewriter? I remember a typewriter. You may not know. I don't know.
I know what it is.
The typewriter.
I never worked on one, but I know what it is.
Was back in the day, and the people that used to work on them to fix them said there was always one letter that was always they had to replace first, and it was the letter I, because we put emphasis on I.
Wow.
And it was the one that always had to be replaced first because I. Why? Because we want to make sure I get my way. I want to be the one that's in power. You got to listen to what I'm saying. And that's what happens. Me, myself, and I.
Maybe. I know we tangent off a little bit, but it's all related. It really is, guys. If you think about everything we've talked about today, the addiction and the what can happen to your brain and causing the depression and different things that relate to that, the peer pressure, the bullying, all this, the I generation, caring about me and myself, but we don't care about Tommy over there or Jim over there or Sarah over there. And when they're the ones that need it more, they're the ones that are really hurting. And it's the me, I. And I believe, and of course, I could be wrong, and I'm always, down for that to learn. But in my opinion, I think that's really what's causing the suicide uprise. And it's been growing and growing. People are like, well, no, it's not. I'm like, yes, it is. Statistically, it's growing. If this is something that you have struggled with or that you know someone, get help. Tell someone. From two, guys here, and then we have a couple females that are on our crew and our show too. But if you are going through something, you got to tell somebody, whether it's a best friend, a coach, a pastor, right?
Yes. A coach is great. Coaches are great. And the counselor at the school. Counselor at a school would be good. Be really good. They've been trained to be able to get you to places that can really help you.
Yes.
Or give my phone number out to call people. Yeah, I've got calls all through the night from people just like him just saying, hey, call this guy. Perfect stranger. Well, perfect, I don't know about that, but a stranger. And I'm able to get up and go meet with them. And it's just so beautiful to know that I was there in the shoes, that I'm talking to somebody that is dealing with what they're going through. And I can say, yes, I was right where you are, and this is how I did it, and this is how I'm going to help you. Where
does this Jesus aspect and God aspect come in? And what were your thoughts on that?
Well, perfect. Sermon on the Mount. Okay, it's Matthew 5 through 7. And all through there it talks about blessed are those that are poor in spirit, for they will be blessed. Blessed are those. And it's talking about the ones that are hurt, the painful, us, the ones that we've got to endure. Because guess what? I don't care how rich, how popular, you go home at night, you're still thinking about something that's playing through your head of, my gosh, this is sad, I'm depressed, I'm hopeless in some areas. There's a story of a man walking down the street with a millionaire, and he goes, how are you doing today, sir? He goes, man, I love my life. I am the happiest man in the world. And the millionaire stopped him and said, sir, I would give all my money just to have that. Happiness. People, there's hope. There's happiness. And you know, I've talked to many people that are absolutely so rich that don't know God, that says they would do anything they can to get the happiness. And I tell them Jesus. And I get to explain it to them. Do they fully get engaged? No. But there's a seed that gets planted. And that seed that's planted that needs to be put into somebody's thoughts aren't going to be seen by me and you.
You're right. Yeah.
But it's going to be seen when they go home at night and say, you know what? Maybe I do got to find out something good about this. Because the scripture tells us all through there how to live right, how to have happiness. I am happy with my life. I'm happy with my wife. I'm happy with what I do for a living. I'm happy. I'm a very happy person. And there's days when I just feel like, my gosh, I feel lost today.
Yeah.
But the root of it is, you've got to find your place. And finding the place in Jesus, and finding a place in addiction, and finding your place all molded together is like a quicksand. That quicksand, you stand in it, you're slowly sinking. You're slowly sinking. And then by the time you know it, you're 2 years into an addiction, and you're barely breathing. And the only way you can get out if somebody reaches down and grabs your hand and pulls you out of it. And if you look up and you see it's Jesus, and he says, I got something for you. Will you listen to me? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to take that shot? I mean, you live a happy life on earth and you die and there's no heaven?
Right.
You lived a happy life on earth. But if you lived a good life on earth and you live for Jesus and you get to heaven and there is heaven and you're seeing Jesus, it's
a win-win situation, in my opinion.
It's a win-win situation. So back to the addiction, back to the drug, back to Jesus. Bible talks about love. God is love. Love. When you start loving people, things fall in place. When you start bringing unity into a family because of helping them through an addiction, there's unity, there's love.
Yeah.
You want to love. You want to help somebody you love more than you help a stranger, right? That's just normal. That's a normal feeling.
Right.
But if your house is in alignment and your family's in alignment and everybody's living in harmony, isn't it easy to go help a stranger? Go get the one and bring them in?
Know that you're not alone. Know that there are people out there. Know that there are real pastors out there that do love. There are churches that do love. There are some that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing right now. That's a video for another time. But my point is, just keep looking, because you will find it. Jesus is there, and you will find him if you look for him.
Yes.
Any last comments or words you'd like to say? Thank you so much for having me on this video, for sure. I'm glad you could come out and make it into the studio.
Man, this is absolutely phenomenal. Thank you for having me. And you know, there is something I would like to say.
Yes.
This man right here, I've known him for a couple years.
Oh, no.
Okay, I've seen him around for a couple years. I don't know about wanting to know him too much. He's
yeah.
a phenomenal guy. And this guy's heart to reach people and to spread the love is over the top. I mean, words haven't even been created yet what I want to say about this man. And he is absolutely a phenomenal person. Like you said, he's got numbers that we're going to call for addiction. If you want to call us, I'm going to put my personal cell phone on here too, because that's who I am. I want to be the first one that you'll reach out to, because I'll come to you.
Yeah.
And we'll get you the help. But this guy right here, thank you so much, Scott. This is great.
Thank you. Gonna make me cry again.
No, don't do this.
No. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Once again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can definitely give us a chat in the comment section below here on YouTube. If you're watching this on Facebook, you could also comment below on this video thread as well. Please like and share and subscribe this video, especially if you know someone who is going through anything like this. Send it to them in Messenger. Send it to them on Facebook or social media or through an email. I don't care. Get it to them, because I love to have the contact. Even if they don't watch the whole video or even watch it, just at least have the information down below in the description for them to contact for sure. Thank you guys so much for watching. We also have the Who You Are anti-bullying campaign launch coming up November 10th. I have another video that I released on that. For more details, go check out that video. Thank you so much again, Pastor, for coming in today.
Welcome. Thank you.
And we will see you guys in the next video. This is Ready D Radio. We'll see y'all later, all right?
See y'all later.
Stop,